What's up, folks? Anthony Armstrong here, former NFL receiver and host of Believe in Commanders. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or league. Now, if you need help making those selections, you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Now, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on daily fantasy sports. You pick 2 or more players, choose more or less in whatever statistical category, and then you rack in the winnings up to 25x on your cash on your DFS picks. Make your way over to prizepicks.com/believe and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a first deposit match up to $100. You must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast from the Football Grad Network. This is a transfer deadline special. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn, and joining me, as always, the 2 other fellas in Manuel Veth. Manu, how are you?
Good. Transfer window's closed. I'm happy. We can finally focus on football. I guess in an hour's time, it will be all over for us.
Yeah, most certainly. And joining, obviously, Manu and myself is Chris Williams. Chris, how have you been?
Yeah, okay. And those magic beeps somewhere, I'm going to take it that's your watch, is it, Bryce? As we're live, that's the English window closed. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a busy day, hasn't it? Lots of stuff to talk about. Really interesting from, our network interests, because there's quite a few crossovers for various interests of ours that we can bring over. So, it's been an eventful day for the Bundesliga, and a good one.
Yeah, most certainly. As you said, that was the beep for 11 o'clock, and the likes of the English window and a few of the others have shut. The German one has been closed for a little while, so we've obviously delayed recording this pod just in case anything were to happen. But I think we'll be more or less safe now, I'd imagine. Probably jinx that, won't I? But anyway, we're going to go through... I'm going to go through all the sides and talk about the transfers that have come in, not just today, but have come in over the summer. Going to talk about who's come in, who's went. Basically just our opinions on it, whether we think it's a good deal, bad deal, or what it may mean for the club. So, guys, let's start out with champions Bayern Munich. In the last 24 hours, we've seen Renato Sanchez leave. He had been linked, to a few clubs. One of them was Liverpool, and there's a few other sides out there weren't there. But Manu, he's ended up at Swansea in the Premier League of all teams. What do you make of this deal? How come he's ended up there?
I like this deal a lot, actually, because I think that Renato Sanchez, he signed for Bayern last year, of course, as an 18-year-old, and a lot of people don't understand the transition that it takes for an 18-year-old kid to go from Portugal to Munich, expecting all these wonderful things from him, and he, of course, didn't quite deliver. And there was talk that they would sell him, but I think in the club, it has sort of, the big boys have sort of decided that they want to give him another chance and that he needs to play football in order to grow, mature. And therefore they changed their mind from wanting to sell him to loan him out. And that eliminated a few clubs. I know Liverpool were interested, Manchester United were interested, Roma were interested, AC Milan were really close to buy him, but that deal fell short because Milan did not go with the market value. And Swansea came in and wanted to loan him. And of course, Clement, Ancelotti's former assistant coach, is the head coach at Swansea's, and therefore plays a very similar style of football. So this is basically what got this deal across the line. And Bayern are getting 8 million euros on a loan deal, and Swansea have no option to buy. So I think that's a very good deal for Bayern. And I think it's a good deal for Swansea too, right, Chris? I mean, they're getting a player who has a ton of potential and will be very willing to prove himself.
Yeah, he will. And obviously it makes sense. For me, it makes sense from a Bayern area because obviously they know the coach so well, don't they, as does Carlo Ancelotti. So it's perfect sense. And Swansea have got themselves a really good player. And, you know, they flirted with relegation the last few seasons. It's been a while since they had a really good run in the Premier League, probably about 3 to 4 seasons. So for them to bring in a name of this quality, you really have to look on the likes of social media today where it was announced by Swansea and the replies after it from Swansea fans, you know, they were elated. So he will be a big... Without being disrespectful to Swansea, he'll be a big fish in a little pond where if he would have gone to PSG or Juventus or Liverpool, he would have been a medium-sized fish in a very big pond. And I think there's always the case that he could have played in Champions League football and potentially embarrassed Bayern, not by playing in the same fixture as them or even in the same group. But if he would have played for a Champions League side, played in the Champions League and had a fantastic time, likewise, if Bayern maybe didn't have the best of starts, it could be, well, why did we let him go on loan? What was the point in that? And so they've avoided that banana skin by letting him go to a club who needs someone, and he will get game time there. And I think, you know, we've been quite critical of Ancelotti. It's no hidden secret that he likes established players and he's not too keen on developing talent. And this makes sense because, you know, he now gets his old number 2 to develop him, and he knows he can develop him to the right way.
Yeah, well, certainly fans of the Premier League, I'm sure they'll be delighted to have him. A hell of a talent, and something for them to look forward to. But we're going to move on to RB Leipzig now. They've been fairly active over the summer, but they've managed to bring in somebody from Bayern Leverkusen and Kevin Campbell. Chris, what do you see from this? I mean, do you see Kevin Campbell being, going straight into that first 11, or do you see him replacing anyone? Well,
I think the natural assumption is that he's going to replace Oliver Burke, isn't it? Oliver Burke left the other week. I think it was about a week ago now. The days have blurred into one. He's gone to Brighton and Hove Albion. He was dreadfully homesick, and he's moved his family, etc. out. Anyway, Campbell's come in to replace him. Is he going to start straight away? Probably not. But what Leipzig need is a strong squad for the Champions League and to play week in, week out, and also Pokal. And most definitely, though, he will be utilised in all of the competitions because sometimes people forget what a strain and what a drain it is fatigue-wise on players to be playing Monday, Tuesday, to be playing Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, Wednesday, and all the different match days now in the Bundesliga, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and or Tuesday, Wednesday. It's a big toll for any squad, and Leipzig have strengthened with someone who's got the experience of playing in the European competitions, which is something they don't have. So I think this is a really good deal for them. It strengthens their squad, and it was probably one of the worst kept secrets of transfer deadline day, wasn't it? We all knew it was going to happen at some point. I think he was linked about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, the first sniffs around that they were after him. So it makes good sense for Leipzig. Probably not so good for Leverkusen. I think it's another big loss, especially if you work out that they've lost Hernandez as well. It's just another name that's gone. But Leipzig, big winners here. I think he'll do really well. Interested to hear what you think, Manu, especially with regards to Champions League, and he should hopefully give Leipzig an edge.
Yeah, Campbell is a good signing for them because, he knows that Red Bull system, of course. RB in Leipzig doesn't stand for Red Bull, but he's played for RB Salzburg, right? And was a star there, and then went to the Bundesliga and to Borussia Dortmund, where they used him as a winger actually under Klopp, and that didn't quite work out, and then sent him off to Leverkusen, where I thought he was actually very good the last couple of years, and last year it didn't really work out, but that's probably mostly down to our good old friend Roger Schmidt. And I think that, Hasenhüttl and Rangnick, they know who they're getting with him. It's a little bit against club policy because he's 27. They don't like to sign players over the age of 24. But of course, I think they make an exception here because they actually developed this guy, right? So I think that he's going to bring experience to the midfield, Champions League experience to the midfield, and is still young enough to really, develop and relearn those skill sets needed. And I think you said he's not a replacement for Burg. He might be short term, but of course I think long term it's Naby Keita who he's replacing, right? That's really where he fits in the best.
Yeah, obviously, Chris, you mentioned that the likes of Ollie Burke has left on loan. He's went to the Premier League, possibly, homesick, as that was reported. He's went to West Brom. But Naby Keita, this is a deal that's been organised for next season for Liverpool. Do you see them spending this season kind of looking for a replacement, or do you agree with Manu that Campbell's going to be the man?
Yeah, he should be. And don't forget they brought in Konrad Lehmer earlier on in the window, who can also play in that position. Probably not ready to play straight away, but I'm sure they will develop over the rest of the league. And thanks, Bryce, for... I said that Burke went to Brighton, didn't he? He was linked with originally. He's gone to West Brom, so that was my mistake. But Naby Keita, yeah, this is I can't believe what a good bit of business it is for both clubs. But more the winners are Leipzig, because they sell the player for a premium now, but they retain him for the rest of the season. That's a win-win. And then for the gaining club, Liverpool, obviously they secure him now, and they don't have to enter some sort of war next season with regards to add-on fees or potential wage structures, because he would have gone for the clause next season, but every club would have just come in and met the clause, and then you're trying to battle with the likes of Juventus, maybe even Bayern, or with Paris Saint-Germain, Chelsea, and you're looking at, can you match the wage structures? Can you match the signing on fee? And Liverpool have come in and offered them, what must be a good deal. Obviously relations were kept sweet, even though bids were coming in and being rejected. And yeah, it makes sense. And I think it makes more sense for Leipzig, especially, we all talked about it. I wrote an article on Sportstat about it, that Leipzig weren't keen on selling because they wanted to tie up a new contract and get rid of that clause, and that evidently wasn't going to happen. 1st of August, the first contract was rejected, and I think it dawned on them then that it probably would be good to do some business now. And I just think that RB Leipzig are backed by Red Bull, who are a unbelievable marketing machine. Not only have they now got this 75 million coming in depending on results. They've kept their player for a year, and they've now got, millions of fans worldwide. Liverpool fans are going to be tuning into all their games. Potential percentage might buy RB Leipzig merchandise. It's just a win-win situation for both clubs, I think, but Leipzig played a blinder.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, we knew that they wouldn't sell this summer with Champions League coming in, and I think they were so adamant that they won't. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't sell this summer. And then when they thought, okay, well, maybe we can retain him. But Rangnick about a week ago said, well, we tried to sign him to a new contract and it didn't work. And I think the big worry was, and this is actually related to Renato Sanchez, is that Bayern would come in and get him. And there was a real chance that would happen. And I think that's why RB said, well, let's talk to Liverpool and see if we can maybe get a deal done for next year, making sure that we get maybe a little bit more cash out of this, make sure he doesn't go to our competitor. And, that basically is one of the reasons why Bayern then went and said, okay, we're not going to sell Renato Sanchez, because we can then have Renato Sanchez as a backup, because we didn't get Keita. So that ties in a little bit, but yeah, I think it's a fantastic deal by Leipzig, because they did exactly what they said they would do. They didn't sell him this summer. and they're still getting money. I mean, they're getting 20 million on top of the exit clause. So, it's a massive win for them.
Yes, indeed. A good bit of business for RB Leipzig. And I'm sure Liverpool fans will be happy to see Keita join their side next season. Guys, we're going to speak about Borussia Dortmund now. Chris, I'm going to go to you first. We're going to talk about their youngest addition that they just added today. Obviously, we've seen Moussa Dembele leave for Barcelona just earlier this week. But Dembele?
I've never heard of him.
Well, what have I done? Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Don't know who he is. Doesn't he play for Celtic? Do you mean that Dembele?
Close enough. But we'll
I know you mean.
that.
You're on about the kid who tried to juggle the ball in a new camp and failed. Is that the kid you're on about?
Look, let's not get personal. Come on. We're all grown-ups here. Chris, let's focus on the guy who has come into Dortmund. Or one of the guys has come in Jadon Sancho. He's come from Man City, young prospect, but maybe a lot of people wouldn't have heard about him. He's only 17 years old. What type of player is he, or what do you know about him?
I know absolutely nothing about him. He's a Manchester City academy player. It's fantastic business. He's been touted as a move for a while. There was a few clubs interested in him. I was surprised when I read that Dortmund had tied him down to a deal this morning, and then all of a sudden it's released via. Well, it was by Dortmund themselves, and they tweeted the picture. Interesting. He's got obviously I do know who Ousmane Dembele is. He's got his number as, and he's taken number 7. So we'll see if he can slot straight into that. It's a bit of a big number to take, but he's taken it. And yeah, he's another exciting prospect. So add that to the likes of Alexander Isak, Zagadou, who's another good, exciting young prospect. And I think we've spoken before at great length about how Dortmund have now got a very youthful side and a manager that can, a head coach that can take them forward and get them to deliver stuff. And Cross, we watched him the other day. I thought they were brilliant going forward, and he'll add another element to that. I wouldn't expect too much too soon because he's 17, but he is of that age where he'll be nurtured well at Dortmund, and really, without trying to put too much pressure and too much weight on his shoulders, the sky's the limit for him at that club.
Yeah, well, we've seen Dortmund over the years really nurture young talent, so he's definitely going to be in safe hands, we feel. But Manu, we're going to go to you about the other two signings that have come in. Yarmolenko, obviously, you've reported plenty about him on Football Grad over the last few years, but he's not the only man that's come in. Jeremy Toljan has also come in. What can you tell us about these two? And by the way, Chris, I appreciate your honesty in saying that you didn't know anything about Sancho, because I'll be honest, I'd never heard of him ever.
I mean, Bryce, no one can say they know anything about him. He's an academy player. Unless you go and watch Manchester City's academy week in, week out, or you're a Manchester City correspondent, journalist, you should know nothing about him. Beware of false prophets who say they do.
Well, we have actually been able to speak to a couple of people who know a bit about him. And they said that he reminds them of a young Leroy Sané, very direct, very fast player. Those who love to watch the European Championships have seen him quite a bit too. So he seems a very exciting prospect, and Dortmund paid 7 million euros for him, even though they didn't have to, right? Because the scholarship contract meant that he could just leave Manchester City, but they didn't want to wait for the arbitration hearing at the FA and the FIFA, so they basically said to Manchester City, I mean, Dortmund are not short of cash right now. That's one thing that's no problem for them, and they basically arranged a deal to just get everything done and dusted and sign this kid. And when you talk to some of the people at Dortmund, you hear a lot of excitement. I think he could slot in right away. I think he's that kind of player. Medium term is what Sorg said. He doesn't use those words lightly. I think the one issue is that they have to bring him up to speed physically, and get him up to speed, because he hasn't been training for 4 weeks. But I think they got a quite an amazing player there, and that's the 7th signing this summer, and that's in a summer where we didn't expect them to be very busy. But of course, Dembele left, and that changes everything. And so, they got rid of a little bit of deadwood, didn't they, Chris, with getting rid of Emre Moore, Michael Mourinho, a bunch of other guys. Ginter, of course, left. Bender left. So there was a little bit more restructuring than we anticipated. And I like those last two deals. And of course, we spoke about Yarmolenko on the last week's pod, or well, I guess on Monday's pod. And I like that signing quite a bit. There's a few things that I'm worried about, is his age and the fact that he has been maybe a little bit past his prime, or not at the level that he was 2 years ago. But I think Bosch can get him back to that. And Jeremy Tolian is a fascinating signing. Player who played very well for the U21 and showed a lot of potential for Germany's youth setups, and quite fast, can play left back, can play attacking wing. I think he can play right back as well, can play in the 3-5-2, he can play in the 4-3-3. It's a very good all-round signing, and he's a little bit ahead of Paslak in his development. Who they of course sent out on loan to Hoffenheim in almost a return deal. But I like that deal quite a lot. Tolian for Paslak is a good one, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and I just wonder, had Hoffenheim got through the Champions League qualifier, if this would have gone through, and are we seeing a sort of downside to Hoffenheim dropping out of that prestigious tournament and into the sister tournament in the Europa League? Are they unable to keep hold of this player? Because I didn't see this coming, and he is a bit of a utility player, especially at the back. He can play on either side. He's got he's capable of playing on either side. Even though he's left-footed, he can play right back if he needs to. Or he can even play in left midfield. So it's a good utility buy, this, and I think he'll do really well at Dortmund. And Dortmund for years have been good at spotting a gem, and I'm glad that he's gone now for Hoffenheim's sake, because had it been a little earlier, you don't know what sort of exodus happens when one player starts going. But I think when it's on deadline day, you're quite safe that it's a straight out of left field move, literally straight out of left field move, and you just get on with it and deal with it. But unfortunately, Hoffenheim now have lost a few key players, so I now fear a little more for them than I did perhaps at 9 o'clock this morning when I got up.
But he wasn't a starting player for them per se. We actually reported on this transfer a week ago when there was the first rumblings of this happening. We have an article up on Fußballstadt.com, and I was worried it would go out of date and this deal would never go over the line, and it finally did. But I'm not sure that Nagelsmann really knew how to use him properly at Hoffenheim, and he seems to be quite happy with getting Paslak in return. And maybe it's a swap deal. They're getting Paslak now for 2 years, which is a long loan. And, we've seen with the likes of Philipp Lahm, who went for 2 years on loan to Stuttgart, before he kickstarted his career at Bayern, that a 2-year loan deal at a different club can do wonders.
Yeah, I mean, he played infrequently last season, didn't he? He was injured quite a few occasions, but he still managed 20 games, and he'd started both games this season. But key that he'd started on the right, which isn't his stronger side. So obviously, he's not seen as someone who was automatically going to be in contention for either, the left back side, the left side of centre back if they were going to play a 4, or even, a left-sided wing back. He's way down the pecking order in that. So you can see why he has let him go. It'll be interesting to see how he performs. So I suppose both managers will be very happy on what they've got. It'll be interesting to see, and I'll be interested to see how he settles in the Dortmund side, which is starting to really evolve from the one that we saw win the Pokal last season. Yeah, definitely. And Paslak plays on the right? So it's actually, it seems like they had surplus material on the left, Hoffenheim did, and Dortmund had too many on the right, and so they basically swap players in a way. And of course, with Schmelzer and all these guys down, that Tolian deal makes sense. And it looks like Paslak to Hoffenheim makes sense for Hoffenheim as well, because they were a little thin on that right back position.
And Chris, just before we move on, I mean, we've kind of covered Dortmund and Hoffenheim there, but just a quick moment on Emre Mor. I mean, Manu mentioned that obviously he's moved on to Celta Vigo there, but I mean, he was a young hopeful that I think a lot of people seen. a lot of potential in him. I really thought that he would kick on, but didn't seem to really happen for him at Dortmund.
No, and I don't know whether he came in at what was particularly a bad time for him to come in. He didn't come into the best of atmospheres, did he? And he didn't really get as much gain. He's almost a replica of Mikel Merino for me. He's come in. He maybe hasn't got as much time as he would have wanted. Has he not settled as well? And he's moved on quite quickly. But there's no doubt in that when he came in, everybody was like, "Well, yeah, this kid could be going places." Not to say he won't go places now he's left, but we all thought he would get the time and the development opportunities. But that's football. Players come in and you think they're going to get a time and the ability to start in a squad, and it doesn't happen, and then they're out the door at the next window. So. Yeah, I'm sure he will be. He'll be happy to get out. Or players want to play at the end of the day, especially if you're in somewhere like the German league. They want to be playing. If you're going to go to the Premier League and you want to sit on the bench and be paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s, you may take that. But if you're a young kid who's trying to start in a game, then and establish yourself as as a national team player or as just a week in, week out player, you want to be playing, and he hasn't got that. So he's probably right that he's moved on, and wish him the best luck.
Yeah, we wish him all the best. Hopefully he gets plenty of game time there and, well, can bring out the potential that we all know he has. But yeah, guys, that more or less covers Dortmund and Hoffenheim, I feel. So we're going to move on to Freiburg and speak a little bit about them. They've brought in two players last minute. Manu, what can you tell us, if anything, about Yorick Rave? He's obviously a French winger. That's about all I know about him, and he's come from Young Boys in Switzerland. But can you tell us a little bit more about him?
Well, thankfully, we got to see quite a lot of Yorick Rave because he played first against Dynamo Kiev, and then he was in action against CSKA Moscow. So, covering those games for footballgrad.com, we got to see quite a bit of him. And Freiburg has been in the hunt for this guy for quite some time, but Young Boys wanted to reach the Champions League group stage first before they let him go, or we're hoping to reach the Champions League group stage. Didn't quite work out. It's the Europa League group stage instead, and that opened the door for Freiburg to sign him for 4.5 million euros. He's a bit of an experienced guy, he's 27. He's been around mostly in Swiss football. He came from Saint-Etienne, joined Lausanne Sport and then played at Grasshoppers, and then has been at Young Boys Bern, and Young Boys are very much the second biggest club in Switzerland these days. And, he's played Europa League, he's played Champions League qualification games for them, and in general, brings that experience and is exactly what they need when you consider all the players that they lost. And, Chris, you spoke several times about the fact that they lost key players, and we fear a little bit for them. So they needed someone who comes in. Yes, the Swiss league isn't as strong as the Bundesliga, but he was a top player in the Swiss league, and who has that experience and maybe shoulder a little bit of experience as well for a team that seems very young at times.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough, saying the word lucky enough, I was lucky enough to see them on match day one against Frankfurt, and yeah, they could do with some reinforcements. So the people they've brought in will shore those areas up. And yeah, as you said, he was a high performer in the Swiss league, and yes, albeit it's a lower level league, technically lower level league. You can't say that these people coming in aren't going to prosper in or be able to stand up to that challenge. So obviously they've brought them in for a reason, and now they're going to, at least should look like they'll have something to fight with. And Bryce, I don't know if you're going to move on to who I think you're going to move on to.
Well, yeah, and I was going to bring it up to yourself. I mean, Ryan Kent coming in from Liverpool. I mean, what is this not just good business for Freiburg, but also for Liverpool? I mean, is there going to be maybe I don't know, something in place that he has to play X amount of games? Or, I mean, what way does this work, for Liverpool, not just Freiburg, out of interest? Are they going to have to hit a certain amount of games?
Yeah, so I'm not privy to the exact amount of games, but Liverpool only send their players out on loan if they can't get the sort of development needs they require in the first team. evidently Ryan Kent at the moment is going to be way down a pecking order with Liverpool's forward line. So if Jurgen Klopp felt that he could get better development at a club than at Liverpool, he sanctions that loan deal. But there has to be a minimum requirement of games. I would assume, and I am assuming and hazarding a guess here, it'll be around the 30 to 35% mark. He needs to play in games, whether that's the whole game or whether it's a part game. They won't get away with 2-3 minute substitutions. He'll have to get some sort of development. So he will get that. He will get that at Freiburg. Kent can play on the left, or he can play centrally as a second striker, or he can play on the right wing. As we know, some coaches like to play the wrong foot on the wrong side so they can cut in. You have to look at Ian Robben for that. He is going places. In the Liverpool circles, Ryan Kent is going places. And, Freiburg were one of 3 clubs. Hanover were the first team that were interested in him. Hanover were interested in taking him and Ben Woodburn, who's another Liverpool youngster, on loan. They wanted them both. They wanted Woodburn originally, and Klopp said no because he wants him to develop at Liverpool. So it was all set up for Ryan Kent this morning. And then it didn't happen because Hanover brought a signing in, who we'll talk about in a bit. So I won't burst that bubble now. And that was it. The deal was done. And very, very late, like really late into the window, Freiburg made an offer, because originally there was Hanover, Freiburg and Stuttgart interested. And Freiburg came in really late. And it must have been late because this transfer was only confirmed 3 hours after the window shut, because Liverpool and Freiburg were concerned that maybe the registration paperwork hadn't got through to the right area in time. So you're looking at maybe it was 2 to 3 minutes to spare when the paperwork went in. And once it was confirmed by the league and by the league that the registration forms were fine, then it was announced. So you can get from that how touch and go it was. But he must have been promised the development opportunities, and he will get them there, because they were certainly lacking in forward options. And the other day, they only need a injury to 1 or 2, and then they're right down on the bones of their backside. So Kent will come in and he'll offer them an alternative option, and I think he'll really enjoy that stadium. I've been there, and we've all seen it on the TV. It's a nice, close-knit stadium. It's a lovely part of the country. Couldn't be asking to move anywhere better in my estimation at the moment. Having been to Freiburg, it's a beautiful place. He should love it, and he should fly there. And I'm going to be really interested in watching him. Obviously, he's a Liverpool fan and covering Liverpool as well. But as someone who likes to see youth given its chance, and the Bundesliga is the best place for that at the moment, I'm really interested to see how it gets on.
Yeah, I must say, I always enjoy seeing players from the UK move abroad. I think it's only going to be a good experience for them. So, I hope things go well for them. And I also hope Freiburg gets something back from them. But we'll move on to Werder Bremen now. And in came a new striker from them, all the way from Standard Liège, in the shape of Ishak Belfodil. Nobody thought I'd get that pronunciation right.
Well done. That's maybe the biggest news on deadline day.
That's one of them. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty more I'll mess up along the way, probably more simple to read than that. But I don't really know. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of the Algerian striker. It looks like, from what I have found on him, that he's been around a few Italian clubs. But Manu, can you kind of express what exactly Werder Bremen are getting from him?
Well, hopefully someone who can score goals for them. I know they have been desperate to find a striker and looked at various different options. There was even some crazy rumor about Andy Carroll going to Werder Bremen. I don't think that would have fitted Werder Bremen's budget, to be quite honest. I heard Andy Carroll some crazy money in England. So,
well, what's the nightlife over there? Andy Carroll may have fit in.
He can't.
And
really.
Does anybody own a caravan? Because that's where he lives. He lives in his teammate's caravan on his drive.
I really couldn't see. I can see agents trying to push that deal on Werder Bremen, but I can see why Bremen said no, thank you. We'll go with the Algerian striker from Standard Liège instead. Probably more money for value. But you know what? The Andy Carroll rumor makes sense when you look at the height, and the build of the guy. They were obviously looking for a big striker. This guy is 1.91 meters, so 6'3", 6'3.5". I got us a big, tall lad. His strike rate doesn't really blow me away. He scored 17 goals in 40 games in Belgium, 9 goals for Parma in 57 games. It's not enormous numbers. It's not the kind of numbers where you think it's like there's guaranteed goals. I think the one thing that kind of saves his statistics a little bit is that to his 11 goals in his 25 games last season, he added 6 assists. So maybe a bit of a target man, right? But I'm not sure if that's what Bremen need. They did quite well with Bartels and Kruse, 2 dynamic strikers playing very well off each other. I guess that's someone you bring off the bench to create room to act kind of like as a breaker when you have problems finding space in the box. But yeah, this is a wait and see kind of transfer for me. I'm not convinced that's exactly the man that Bremen need.
Yeah, well, just have to see if Werder Bremen can get the best out of him and get a few more goals than his previous sides. We're going to go to Borussia Mönchengladbach now, and they've brought in a new striker also in Raul Bombadilla. I think fans would probably remember him best last season playing for Augsburg and getting getting the goal in the 3-2 win, 3-2 thriller, and comeback against Werder Bremen. That's probably what I remember best from him, his time at Augsburg. But Chris, we just talked about a striker that probably isn't exactly what Werder Bremen needed most desperately. Is this what Gladbach need desperately? A player like Bombadilla, a big, strong striker?
Oh, well, I think if you're gonna bring anybody onto your books, a big, strong striker is a massive football cliche, isn't it? You do need one. Although Gladbach do have very good strikers and they got very good forward options. It's another side that for me are building a squad depth, because Gladbach could really make inroads into that. Maybe top 4 might be out the reach, but definitely the top 6 to get back into Europe. They can do that this season. I think we've seen how Häcken plays, and we've seen how well they can play at times. When it snaps into place, Gladbach are excellent. I thought they were excellent the other week as well on the first match day when I saw them. I thought they were very, very good, and I like this because he is a big, strong player, and sometimes you need that ability. Obviously, he's a main central forward striking role, but again, should they want him to, he can play left or right. Doesn't particularly do it that often, but he's a main out-and-out striker, and he's a big, strong, powerful striker. And yeah, he just looks like a mean old player to me. Although obviously he's not old, as he's only he's 30, which he is getting on. It's a good experience buy for them, and it's an option. And I think Gladbach need an option. If it's not going well for them, they need a plan B, and he will give them a plan B. And that's why I think that's, for me, this is why they're strengthening like this, because they want to push to those European places again. Gladbach's a big club. It's a very big club, Champions League, European Cup club. It needs to be back in that element. And if they can build on this season and get back in there, then you can maybe next season they could attract maybe, and this isn't a slant on Bombadilla, but they could attract a better caliber of player in. But unable to do that, you've got to get back into those areas. And for me, they're building a squad that's capable of that.
Yeah, Bryce, they're bringing him back, actually. This is his second stint at Gladbach. He was there from 2009 to 2011. Then he was out on loan in Greece, and then he came back and played another half year before he went back to Switzerland, where he had his big breakthrough. And then, he played at Young Boys and then at Basel. And that's when after that, he came back to the Bundesliga, and his second stint for Augsburg is where he really made a name for himself, as a striker, a powerful striker. I always think he looks a little bit like a box, because I think I swear he is as wide as he is tall. And that doesn't mean he's fat. He's just a really, really strong player. But he'll give him that extra option. I think Chris is absolutely right. They're building squad depth because they have lots of good options, but Raphael and Stindl, they're more the technical kind of players, right? You could get lots of goals out of them, but sometimes you just need what we call in German Kampfschwein, like a battle pick, someone who just breaks through the lines and is, willing to get themselves dirty and just like fight and scratch and bite their way through. And when you do a little bit of research in Raul Bobadilla's life, he had a very hard upbringing in Argentina. Of course, he plays for Paraguay, but he's born and raised in Argentina. And so he brings that edge to him. And I think that's exactly what Gladbach did. Gladbach have a lot of players that are very, very fun to watch and very technical gifted, but they don't have someone who, they don't have a battle, they don't have a Kampfschwein, and you need that sometimes.
Well, there you go. It's going to be interesting to follow his second stint there. And yeah, it could be an exciting season for Gladbach. Let's just see how that pans out for them. A deal that we've talked about on the previous pods was Schalke centre-back Benedikt Höwedes going to Juventus. That is all completed now. Manu, how much do you think...
That's the mistake klaxon, because it's a massive mistake to let him go.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I was thinking that's what's happened.
I was going to say this is the first nail in Tedesco's coffin, but the klaxon was better.
Nice touch. Though, how can we be certain that this is going to affect them that much? Are they really? Is it that big a deal? I mean, I know he's very experienced. He's been at the club for a while. Do you really think that's the nail in the coffin? Are we that positive on that?
We'll talk about that in halfway through the season, and then I'll tell you. But I'm pretty sure we'll be. This is a massive mistake.
Bryce said he's been there a while. He's been there.
Well, it's 250 years
since 2003.
He's a legend.
This is right?
This is like selling Steven Gerrard. Okay, just to put this into perspective. This is a dumb move. It's just, I'm just nailing it down as it is, or how it is. See what I did there? Although someone did that on Twitter before me. I'm not gonna pretend I came up with that. But, no, this is idiotic. I really don't get it. And Höwedes was quite clear. I think that they thought they could strip him of his captaincy and he would just accept it. And, take one for the team. And apparently he didn't. And, he's made a statement saying, Schalke has released a statement, you shouldn't stop travelers. And then Höwedes shot one back and said, sometimes you should stop a traveling person. I think we can clearly see what's going on there. And they dismantled the club legend so that Tedesco can, stamp authority on the squad, whatever that means. And I personally think he's targeted the wrong man. Because I'm pretty sure Goretzka will be gone at the end of the season, and then you basically dismantled one legend in a weak attempt to keep another. I don't know. I think that this is wrong, and the klaxon is perfect, Chris. We'll keep that one.
What I'm more disappointed in is the fact that at the very end, once he's gone, Tedesco had the gall to say, well, maybe he should have been a bit more patient, and he would have got a shot. He's a club legend, and he's a club legend at Schalke, and he's been stripped of the captaincy. He's been dropped from the match day squad. He's been made to sit on the bench. He hasn't actually done anything wrong, and you're not looking at someone who's not achieved anything. You're looking at a World Cup winner. You're looking at a Pokal winner. You're looking at someone who really galvanised them when they were on their arse end last season. In that horrendous position where they were rock bottom, and it's only his captaincy that he was strong and he dragged the team forward, and once they got the win they were bouncing back, and they looked really good once they got over that initial fall. And don't forget they lost Matip prior to the season last season, so they had to adapt, and I just think he's been treated terribly. I get it, it's football, and the romantic in me thinks that you should, always treat people well in football, but there's no loyalty in football anymore, and that goes for players, managers, coaches, no matter what. But this is a mistake for me, because what is not a particularly strong squad especially if you look at the departure to Arsenal from the back line. Now all of a sudden you've lost someone else who's exceptionally good on that back line, and all of a sudden Schalke look very, very shaky. And I sort of said that I didn't think he'd be there by match day 5, which maybe was a bit flippant. I'd struggle to see him stay until Christmas if it goes wrong, because this is on his head, and the fans will say it's all gone wrong, and you let Howardus go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you're right. And just maybe to finish off the Howardus thing, Juventus signed a striker who had better numbers than Bonucci had last season. And Bonucci was a worldwide transfer target by some many big clubs. But when you compare the two players, Howardus actually had better numbers throughout the board than Bonucci. So Juventus actually get an upgrade for almost next to nothing. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Well, I have heard that Tedesco didn't rate his passing, and that's his excuse for getting rid of him. He says that his passing and distribution from the back was too poor to build from the back moving forward, but also didn't rate his pass backs to the goalkeeper even.
Okay, but
it doesn't need to really rate them. Yeah. It doesn't need to rate them because the goalkeeper can't pick it up anymore. He just realised it's not 1985 anymore, doesn't he?
That's all I'm saying. That's what I've heard, which is probably just another excuse for a reason that he wanted to get rid of him, right? But we'll not know. Oh well, he's gone. Right, we'll move on. It's time for me to try and get pronunciations right. I can't even get that right. In Bayer Leverkusen, they've signed a fella from Olympiacos under the name Panagiotis Retos. Is that right? I don't even know.
That'll do me, Bryce. That's excellent.
That sounds good.
That'll do me. As you could tell, he's not really a household name, but a defender from Panathinaikos. Who wants to take this one?
I'll try.
Okay, go for it.
Because I don't know very much about him. I know that he was born in Johannesburg, so there's that. But yeah, Leverkusen paid a lot of money. And one thing that Leverkusen have been good at is unearthing young, talented defenders in that area of the world. They found Jedwai, of course. They found Papadopoulos, and they found this kid now, and they were willing to part with a lot of money. I heard somewhere in the region of 20 million euros that they paid for him. So they must be definitely seeing something at him. And there's a lot of things that went wrong at Leverkusen in the last couple of years, but the scouting has always been spot on. And they were willing, and we'll talk about that in a moment, that they were willing to let go of Dragovic and brought in this kid. So they're obviously seeing something. And I think they're planning to have him straight in. Playing in the starting 11. So, I think either Leverkusen got something really wrong, or we'll see another big talent coming to the Bundesliga right there.
Well, talking about other talents, it looks like they've not just added a centre back, but they've actually added a striker as well, in Lucas Alario. He's obviously been knocked. His name's been knocked around for a while, linked to a few clubs. I believe he was even linked with Liverpool at one stage. But he seems to be a bit of a proven goal scorer for the likes of River Plate. Manu, can you enlighten us a little bit more on this second signing of Leverkusen?
Well, thankfully we got a guy in Argentina, and Nico Miramont, who wrote an amazing article on this transfer for Fußballstadt.com and listed all the legal ramifications and problems that are going on with this deal, because Bayer, first Bayer bought the 40% that was owned by another club. They do this in Argentina all the time. Or in South America in general, there's multiple player ownerships, technically illegal, but what does FIFA do anyways? So Bayer went and bought the 40% and basically put, the gun on the table and said, well, River, we already own 40%, and now we're going to trigger his exit clause. And River said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to give up his registration. So when Bayer tried to send the money to River Plate to trigger this exit clause, River Plate refused to give them the bank details. So we've already have pictures of Alarios in Bayer Leverkusen shirts. He's already in Germany. He went on a plane and flew over. His contract is signed, but the River Plate and has not released his his registration yet, and that makes it tricky. From what I understand, is the Bundesliga is going to make an exception here, because obviously River Plate is putting in stops and making this more difficult than need be. So I think we'll see him eventually. Nico rates this guy. He rates him as a very good striker, very interesting player. Bayer Leverkusen are paying 24 million euros for him, for a guy who hasn't played in Europe yet. So, there must be something to it. And Bayer Leverkusen have always been the best club in Germany when it comes to signing South Americans. So they must be seeing something in him. But they got themselves into a real mess. And if you want to read on detail about that, I suggest go over to fußballstadt.com. There's an article where it's all outlined there, all the legal ramifications, the story behind it. Nico calls it a soap opera, and that sounds about right.
It sounds like I'll be tuning into that article as well. I think I need to know a little bit more about him myself. Chris, we've seen very last minute, a defender in Alexander Dragovic leave and head to Leicester City. He was maybe not the most renowned name, especially amongst the back line of Leverkusen. But what will Leicester be getting? Will Bayer Leverkusen lose out in this?
Well, they're getting a sort of unknown quantity, really, aren't they? I mean, he only came in this time last year. So came in as a bit of a big money transfer, and he came in originally. He's around about, I'd have to do the conversion on today's money. He'd probably be around about 18, 19 million euros, but he's not particularly had a shot. He didn't feature for that much at the start of the season. And I feel a little sorry for him, because we all know that Leverkusen didn't exactly have the best of seasons last season. But Leicester obviously feel that they need to strengthen in that area, and they've got themselves, a loan deal with an option to buy at the end of it. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think players normally, and this is a massive generalization, and I know there's books to this trend, players normally adapt quite easily going from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, because it's a physical league, and it's also got a technical element to it. So I think he will be fine at Leicester. And Leicester are in essence a mid-table team. Bayer Leverkusen were that for most of last season, so it should be a seamless transition for him. And you never know what might happen. He may do enough to have his loan for the option not to be taken up, and for him to go back to Bayer Leverkusen. But I always get the feeling when you get these options to buy loans that that's generally it. It's an easy way to buy a player now, but not have to pay for him until a year later, which may be the option in Leicester's case for this.
Yes, indeed. Chris, we're going to just stick with yourself, talk about Wolfsburg now. They've brought in Divock Origi from Liverpool on loan as well. What type of player can Wolfsburg fans expect from him? I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I quite rate Origi. I think he's a bright young player, and I think they're going to get a pretty decent young player who's going to get them goals this season. So out and out, he's a central striker. So he would normally like to play in a 1 or as a 2. He can play in a 3 if required. And if I was to say where do I think he's going to play here, I probably think he'll play out wide on the left as a left forward option at Wolfsburg. However, what they're getting is a player who improved exceptionally well since Jurgen Klopp arrived at Liverpool. So he was a little thin. He's only 22, but he's a little thin. He bulked up in the out season, and he also improved his off the ball running, and his tactical nous in the game improved. And on his day,
he is very, very good. I mean, if you want to see what he can do, if you're a Wolfsburg fan and you've never seen Divock Origi before, if you just Google Divock Origi versus Southampton, you'll see him destroy Southampton with a hat-trick. And he was as strong on that day as I've ever seen him play before. And he is. It's a surprise. There was talk he was going to be a make-weight deal for Thomas Lemar and Monaco. Evidently, that didn't happen. And then he's gone to Wolfsburg on a loan. And I think Wolfsburg are getting a strong, powerful player. We just talked about Dragovic to be able to make the transition from Bundesliga to Premier League because they are a similar style of league. And I think that Origi should have no problem settling into a Wolfsburg side, especially if the ball's played to his feet and in and around his feet. I think he'll be fine. He's also very powerful in the air, so he'll add a set piece threat. I'll have an article coming out now. The window's shut tomorrow, and people aren't really interested in tactical and scouting reports when it's transfer deadline day. So that'll be out tomorrow. So Wolfsburg fans will be able to get an overview of what they're going to get. But needless to say, they're getting a strong international player. At one point he was chosen over Lukaku for the Belgian national side. That should give you an indication of his ability. They're getting a really good player that can play, that I think will play on the left. He can play right as well if he needs to, or he could even play as a second striker. So a little bit of versatility in there for Wolfsburg. And this will be a very, very good deal. He's also, obviously, we talked a little earlier about the Ryan Kent deal. He's obviously been guaranteed a minimum amount of playing time, and Wolfsburg have been able to assure Liverpool he'll get that. The only slight down, I think, for Wolfsburg is that Liverpool have an option to recall a loan in January. So if things aren't going too well for Liverpool and he has a really good start and a really good first half of the season at Wolfsburg, he could find himself being recalled to a Liverpool side, which may be a little bit of a downer for them, especially if he hits the ground running and he starts well. So, it will be interesting to monitor this one. I mean, I'll be excited to cover him anyway as a Liverpool fan in the Bundesliga, and I'll be really looking forward to see how he adapts to Wolfsburg.
Yeah, Bryce, I actually, even if they recall him, I think he adds a bit of experience to what is a very exciting, of course, there's Mario Gomez there. Mario Gomez will be playing. That's why, if Origi plays, he will play as a second striker in a 3-5-2. Or on the wing in a what looks sort of like a flat 5-4-1, but is in reality like a 3-4-3. So he'll play off the wing or as a supporting striker. But when you look at who else they brought in Di Matta, right, who is a 20-year-old striker from Belgium. They brought in Kalen Hinz, who's a 19-year-old striker from England. So even Origi, I know he's only 22, but he has a ton more experience, national team, Europa League, Premier League, right? He will add a little bit of depth. And even if they recall him after 6 months or in the winter, I guess, then, some of these other guys might be ready, to take his role. So I actually like this deal, and Wolfsburg look really good up front. When you look at that list of strikers that they have, because they also have Marvin Stefaniak, of course, who they brought him from Dresden. He's hurt right now, sadly, but he will be fit. Hinz, Origi, Gomez, Di Matta, Osimhen, young Nigerian striker. They look good. And then they have Didavi and Mali behind that. There's some power in that squad. Maybe just maybe Wolfsburg will surprise a few people.
Yeah, it all sounds very exciting for Wolfsburg, doesn't it? It could be an interesting year for them. The right back, though, Vieirinha, I believe it's pronounced. I may have got that wrong, just like many of the other pronunciations. But he's returned to Greece, going to PAOK. So they bid farewell to him and good luck. But we're going to talk about Stuttgart. Manu, they've brought in Andreas Beck from Besiktas. He plays a right back position, doesn't he? What can you tell us about this? Well, I was going to say this young fellow, but he's not. He's 30 years old.
And he's a former national team player. And he is a VfB Stuttgart product. So he's coming home. And I really like this deal for Stuttgart. They're bringing in some experience into that defensive line. I mean, we've seen Stuttgart. They look good on match day 2. Didn't look great on match day 1, but looked good on match day 2. And they're not your typical promoted side, just because, the resources that they have. But they needed a bit of experience. They needed an experienced right back, and Andreas Beck will do this. And Andreas Beck will go straight into the squad. He's born and raised in the area. He's played for Stuttgart's youth academy, before he moved to Hoffenheim, of course. National team player, former national team player. He'll bring tons of experience to the side, and I like this deal a lot. I think he is exactly what Stuttgart need.
Good, but it's not the only man that's come into Stuttgart. I believe that they, I've got this one right, that they have signed a young man in a 20-year-old. Oh God, I'm gonna mess this one up as well. Santiago Ascazibar. Yeah.
I gotta ask you, got to talk to Nico. He's in the chat, Bryce. He can tell you how to say all these things.
I have many languages I need to learn, or even just one language would probably help. Struggle enough with English, I suppose. Joe, what can you tell us anything about him, Manu? What do you know about this new addition?
Well, thankfully we got Nico, and he told us that he really likes this player. There's also a good article on him on Fußballstadt.com, and he says he's the next Mascherano. So fantastic signing for Stuttgart, and I think he will add quite a bit to that side, and I'm really excited to see him play. He's playing in the young Stuttgart team, and he'll get tons of playing time there, and it could be, the next big Argentine midfield talent.
So that just leaves us, just with one or two moments left. I think we need to speak about the other promoted sides in Hanover. They've brought in a new addition in Bibo. I remember that being a social media site. Chris, do you know anything about the ex-Fortuna player?
It was a dating site, Bryce. So you should, maybe that's a little window into your social media habits. Anyway, well, yeah,
well, it wasn't a dating site, not that I knew of, anyway.
Yeah, it was. So this is the guy who they sold, which eventually made the Ryan Kent loan collapse. So this is why it collapsed. It was real early on in the morning, around about 10 o'clock UK time. So it might have even been a little earlier than that. So they've in essence bought their own player, haven't they? Instead of loaning one. They've brought a forward who can play right, centrally, or left. He's been at Fortuna for a while. They've seen him all last season. They've obviously kept running with him. He's now come in, and let's see how he settles. But he's probably in essence can do the job that Kent would have done, and they get to own him, and they don't develop a player for someone else. So I can see why they've done it, and I look forward to seeing him.
Have we done it? Have we finally seen the window shut? Is that it?
That's it. It's a rush to get that through to our own transfer deadline of an hour.
Wow. There we go. Well, it's been a busy summer, hasn't it? Guys, was there anything else you'd like to touch on before we kind of wrap this up? I think we've kind of sped through the transfers today.
Yeah, let's call it. Transfer window's closed. Right.
John, let's concentrate on the football.
You hear that? That's me shutting the transfer window.
There we go. Okay, well, Chris, what have you got going on this coming week? Have you got anything you'd like to draw people's attention to?
So just keep your eye on the Footballgrad Live Twitter account, which is at Footballgrad Live, and you will see the link to Fußballstat come out for just the overview on what can be expected from the Liverpool arrivals to the Bundesliga. So I'll do something on Ryan Kent and also Divock Origi. And then, just a date for your diary will be Chelsea, Karabag, and Spurs, Dortmund, and Arsenal Cologne, which is my 3-day back-to-back mammoth in London. Subject to accreditation, I'll put that in.
Lovely. That sounds like a very exciting time. Manu, what would you like to draw people's attention to, or where can they find you online?
Yeah, we got a couple international break previews, I guess. So Germany, Czech Republic is already on Fußballstadt. There's a few on Footballgrad, so Scotland, Lithuania. We have that. We have the 2 Ukraine games. You wonder maybe why we didn't cover Russia. Russia decided that they didn't need to play an international national team break. game, and they chose Dynamo Moscow instead. So we didn't decide to preview that. There's no point. So those are all up on Footballgrad, Fußballstadt. There's your preview up on Football Cidade on the Mexico game, Mexico-Panama, and then of course Mexico-Costa Rica. So keep an eye out on that. And then I'll personally will take it, transfers are all wrapped up. So I'm just looking forward to actually focus on football for a bit and, get the Champions League previews out and all that. It's exciting to have, focus on football instead of, players going from A to B.
Yeah, very much so. So I've been your host, Bryce Dunn. You can find me on Twitter at BryceDunn11. I'll be doing a few Mexican previews, maybe even the odds Liga MX article as well over the next few days. But thank you very much for tuning in. We'd just like to ask if you enjoy the podcast on Football Grad Network, the 3 podcasts that we do, if you could just go on to iTunes and just rate it, give us something nice to say and to receive. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and if you could just rate us, leave us a comment or 2, that would be fantastic. Thanks guys as always for your support, and auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, ich hab zu holen.
One gift that never gets returned? Trick question. It's 3 gifts: beer, wine, and spirits. And with Drizzly, you can send the gift of drinks right to your loved one's doors. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and holiday spirits, then get them delivered right to that lucky someone's door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly is giving customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code JINGLE at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.